Hey everyone, Andrew Stormer here, and welcome back to another computer tutorial. And today I'm going to walk you through my process of how I spec a computer, how I spec a gaming PC, a video editing PC, anything like that. I want to preface this first by that I am working with someone to start up a business that if you live in the US, you can send us kind of your parameters, your budget, and what you're using a computer for, and we can build the computer and ship it to you. So that's in the works right now. It's not out yet, you can't do it yet, but soon, hopefully in the next few months, it will get started up. So if you don't want to go through the whole process of learning and going through all the 20 videos now that I've made teaching about the computer stuff, you can pay me and the people I work for to build a computer for you. So if you were thinking about building your own computer or buying some YouTube build or anything like that, and you don't want to do the work, I can build your computer. So that's first thing. Second thing is I know this series hasn't done really well on the channel and it's not a thing that people come here for. To me, I'm doing it because when I was learning all this stuff is that I was looking for something like this and it didn't exist, and I wish it did. So if any of you are like me and wanted to get into building computers, this series here is for you. So instead of having to go and do 3 months of research like I did, that you can just watch this right now 20 episode series and learn everything you need to know and a lot more to spec a good build. Now, today, I'm going to walk through how I spec a build using the knowledge that I taught you, and today we're gonna go a little bit easier on it. I'm just gonna hit the main things, go pretty quick, because you don't want to sit here for an hour or two, because sometimes I do take like 2 hours to build a spec sheet like this. I'm gonna hit the main points on everything and just show you what I think is most important when choosing the parts. So we are on PCPartPicker.com, and make an account, and this will save your life doing anything like this. It comes up with all the different errors and incompatibilities and all that stuff. It takes care of a lot of it for you. So you just get to focus on what brand you want, how many watts and speed, and just what you need. You don't have to worry about if it's compatible, it will tell you for you. I'm here starting a new parts list, and first you start out with the CPU. And I'm gonna go with an 8-core hyper-threaded, and let's try to hit somewhere in the 3 gigahertz, so I'm gonna bring it up here. And supports EC doesn't really matter. That doesn't really matter. Do pay attention to the TDP, but not really. Socket and family and all that stuff, that is going to come with it. You don't have to do it when you start with the CPU. If you click price here, you're going to see that most of these, the Ryzens, come up first, the AMD. So I'm going to do an AMD build today. And out of all these 8 cores, and we have a 3 gigahertz, a 3.4, 3.6, 3.2, 3.4, 3.7, and 3.8. So I kind of look, Threadripper's kind of more of a workstation build, and if you want to go for more of a gaming build, I go with more of a Ryzen, even though you can use Threadripper for that. Out of all these options, the 3.7 gigahertz is going to be the fastest, but when we look at it, that's $300. And when this one here, the 3.6, is only 200. So with a build like this, you're going to take the cores. You have 8 cores, and then you hyper-thread it, so times 2, 16, times 3.6. That puts us on a scale of 57.6 CPU power. And that's pretty good. that's up there. So I'm gonna go with add on that one. And we will want a different CPU cooler. Now this one actually does come with a cooler, but we're gonna want a different cooler there. And I guess we'll go to motherboard next, because if you're doing water-cooled, you want to pick out your case before you pick out your cooler. So motherboard brands, you can see it already filters out so much of it. So like socket and chipset and stuff, it already takes care of that when you have a CPU in there. Brands matter, because if you get a bad brand, your part is probably gonna die, or it's gonna come with an issue and it's not gonna work. So for motherboards, I'd say maybe ASRock, definitely Asus, they have a really nice BIOS. EVGA, Gigabyte, and MSI, those are the ones that I would go with. I prefer Asus just because their BIOS is so nice. I'd either go with an ATX or a micro ATX, and then we're not going to do an SLI here. We want at least one SATA 6 gig for our hard drive, and I'm going to say let's do an M.2 SSD build. Let's do that, and then I'm going to say 4 RAM slots and a minimum RAM of 32 gigs. This one takes DDR4, so we're gonna have to pay attention to that. We want one PCIe 16 slot. Ethernet it's gonna come with, so you don't have to click on that. That doesn't matter. Let's do onboard USB 3, and that's all you're gonna need to know. And then now it filters all it out, and now you just kind of click through and see what you like and what looks good. Pretty much what I look for after this is just the memory type. This one only goes up to 2666, so I'm probably going to say no on that one. And this one's a micro ATX. I don't know if I want to do micro ATX just because if you want to upgrade in the future. Let's just jump down to this one here. See, this one here, this one has a bunch of faster RAM speeds. So this one would be good, and it also has SLI support. So if you want that, you have that, 64 max RAM, and that all looks good. So that was this one right here, and that one's pretty cheap. It's $100, so that's pretty good there. And I'm actually going to leave this open in a new tab, and we're going to go choose a RAM. And so RAM brands that I would recommend, I go with Corsair, G-Skill, and Kingston. I'd probably go with one of these three. I kind of prefer Corsair over all of them, but I don't know. Those are kind of the brands that I'd recommend for RAM. And so if we go back here, we're going to see all the different RAM types that it can choose. So just to be quick, I'm going to pick out some of the more main ones. I'm going to go through and pick the 2400, the 2800, the 30, and the 32, just cuz. And then we want 32 gigs of RAM, and I'm going to do 216 gigs. So if you wanted to upgrade to 64 gigs in the future, you could get just another one of these. That sounds pretty good to me. And then I'm going to bring this down to like 16 latency, just because that seems pretty good. You don't really want anything higher, at least at these speeds. And then this is where we come in with the RAM calculations on speed. And now you can get super precise, but when you do that, you probably end up spending $1,000 on just RAM, which is insane. So we're not gonna be finding the fastest RAM, we're just gonna find fast RAM. And for R4, 0.005 or whatever it is pretty fast. If we could find like a 0.004 or something like that, that would be good. We're gonna take 14 on the second one here and divide it by the 24,000 hertz. It's a 0.00583. So that's okay. That's more leaning towards the 6, which we don't really want. If we're gonna be getting a 24,000 hertz, we're gonna need like a 13 or a 12 latency, so I don't think that one's going to be happening, so I'm going to take that one out. The rest of these, it seems like 15 shows up, so I'm going to bring this one down to 15. and we're gonna calculate again. So we're gonna take 15 and divide it by, I guess these ones all are 3,000. There's a 0.005 exactly. So we're just gonna go with this. I don't want to spend too much time looking at RAM and finding what's good. So I'm just gonna click on here, and that looks pretty good. And we are going to add that up. It's a little bit spendy, but our 4 RAM right now is expensive. Yes, we can do storage right now. Usually I do hard drives later. First, let's do the M.2. So I don't know what M.2, let's just click both of those, and an SSD, and we're gonna want somewhere between 250 and a terabyte. Let's go with a Samsung for this, for the M.2 SSD, and I think that's it that we need to click in here. And caches, these SSDs are always pretty good. This one's a 500 gig here. It has a 500 megabyte cache. That's pretty good, and it's only 90 bucks. This one's at 860 Evo. I'm gonna go with the 250 gig just to save money in this case. I'm shooting for around $1,000 build here. And we'll come back and do a normal hard drive in a minute. We're gonna hit a graphics card right now. Graphics cards I'm not as picky with. It's more of just pricing. It's more of who can sell it for cheaper. I go with Asus, EVGA, Gigabyte. I like Gigabyte, they're pretty cheap. MSI, they're pretty good. NVIDIA themselves is fine, but we'll not click on it. PNY, and sure, that'll do it for that. And if we're shooting for $1,000 build, let's go with like a 1060 3 gig or one of the 1070s just to save money. And we want the 16. We don't care about SLI. And this stuff you can get into, but I'm not gonna worry about it, and that stuff, I really don't care. First thing is we wanna look at the core clock. It looks like in this case, we don't want anything below a 1.5 gigahertz, aiming for like a 1.6 to get that extra speed. If we see these ones here that only have 1 fan, click off of it instantly. The single fan cards are always the cheapest, and you want to stay away from them because they usually burn out quicker. So this one here, this one's a 2 fan, and this one looks pretty good. It's almost a 1.6, and it looks pretty good to me. And let's just click on this one because the 1070s start at like 400 at this moment, and these ones are 200. That looks pretty good to me. We're just gonna get one of those. Let's choose a case, and cases, you could go with any case. A case is a case. It really doesn't matter, but the ones that I would probably recommend, Antec, Cooler Master, Corsair definitely, EVGA maybe, Fractal Design, I've seen some cool things with them, maybe Gigabyte, maybe MSI. I like the NZXTs, Fantex, Thermal Takes, they make some pretty good stuff. Let's just go with this, and I think this one, I'm just gonna go with a Corsair case, just because there's some really nice Corsair cases that I like. And we're gonna go with either ATX mid or a full, no power supply, side panel window, yes on the front panel USB 3 because we said yes on the motherboard for that, and motherboard form factors, we got an ATX. I'm just gonna put in a 5.25 inch external bay. If you wanted to get a disk drive, you could. We'll go with 3.25 and just for a hard drive. That looks pretty good to me. After you fill out all the filters and like with how many bays you think you need and for like hard drives and stuff, how many drives you think you're gonna need, then, and you choose all the brands, then you just right click, new tab, right click, new tab. You go through all the cases and you just choose one that you like. So I am going to see which ones I like. I'm actually going to take off the 5.25 inch bays because I know a lot of people, they aren't having them in their things, and it opens up a lot more cases here. And cases, you don't want to spend an arm and a leg unless you really care about looks that much. But in this case, I am really liking their new crystal cases. And because we picked out that white graphics card there, I might pick out this white case here, and we could go back and find some white RAM. And I kind of like white cases and such, but this is just a example build. It's not the go-to. It's not what you are going to want, at least necessarily. I'm just working through my process. I would definitely refine this build more before selling it to one of you or building it for myself. So don't copy this build and buy it, because it's not what I would recommend. It's close, but it's not exact. If we click on the case here and go over to the Newegg website and you go down here, it's gonna tell you the sizes for your water coolers, your fan mounts, and radiator compatibility. So if we wanted to do a front, we could do a 360, a front we could do a 280, a front or a top. I'm gonna do a top, so let's do a 240. So now we're gonna pop back over to here, go to the CPU coolers, and then jump all the way down to here. Water cooled, yes, 240. These kind of don't matter too much, doesn't matter really in manufacturers. With water cooled, I'm not too picky because not many people make great water coolers, but probably a Corsair or Cooler Master. Then I go through with price and see what their CFM were, and this one says 66.7, so that's not that good, and I'm gonna move on to the next one. That one doesn't say move on. 153, dang. 99 CFM for this one. This is a little bit lower profile. I'm just gonna click on this one just cause it's not probably what I'd choose, but just to show the process, I wouldn't probably choose that one, but let's just go with that. And then go back to the case here. It says it has 3 2.5 inch bays and 2 3.5 inch bays. So that means we can fit 2 bigger hard drives in it and 3 smaller hard drives in it. So we're gonna go back to storage, and we are going to choose a 72,000 RPM. And let's just do a 3.25 inch one here. And then a 6 gig SATA. And I'm gonna bring it up to a terabyte storage here. And maybe bring it down a little bit to like a 3. And brands that I would probably recommend for just a regular HDD, I would go with Seagate or Western Digital. Those seem to be like the top brands of reliability and such. And this one here, terabyte, blah blah blah, 64 megs, which is kind of your standard, a Barracuda, 40 bucks. That's not too bad. Let's add it, whatever, get it done with. If you want to get more specific, you want to hire cache, you want more terabytes, you can do that. Then for power supply, so if you look at the top here, it says it's almost 300 watts. Now with a monitor, I'm going to boost that up, and a keyboard, mouse, if you have a mic, anything else, we're gonna add, let's say 100 watts to it, maybe 200 if you're doing a couple monitors or whatever. So we're gonna look for something around 500 watts. So we come in here, we boost this up to 500 watts, and then I would probably go with a Corsair or an EVGA or a Cooler Master power supply. And then I go with a full or a semi-modular. And then with this, maybe a gold if it's not too expensive. If it gets spendy, we'll bring it down. And right off the bat here, we have a 750 watt gold power supply by Cooler Master for 80 bucks. That's a decent deal. Or you could get a 650, but if you ever wanted to upgrade your graphics card in the future and you don't have a lot of watts, then you might have to replace that, because graphics cards can suck a lot of power. So let's just add the 750, just because it's a couple bucks more, doesn't really matter. And then optical drive, we can't fit one in this specific case, but if you wanted, you click that there. Operating system, Windows, I'm not going to go through that. Software, who cares? All this stuff, if you wanted a sound card, you could get that. I wouldn't go through PC Part Picker to get headphones, keyboards, mice, speakers, etc. If you wanted to add different case fans, you could get case fans here or fan controllers here. I'm not going to go through that. The last thing that we're going to go through is monitors here. Monitors, brands, I don't think is a huge deal. Acer, AOC, Asus, Dell, maybe HP, LG, MSI is probably fine. Samsung, they make TVs, so they're probably good. I don't know, it doesn't matter a whole lot, and we're gonna go with a 1080. Let's go with like a 22 minimum and 26 maximum inch. We're gonna bring the response time down to no more than 5 milliseconds. We're going to bring the refresh rate up to 60, which if you wanted a 144, you just bring that up more. Brightness, I don't really care. When you hit 1080, it does widescreen, but I click it anyway. We don't want a curved screen. We want a 16:9, even though the 1080 by 1920 takes care of that. We do want an LED backlit. We probably need to go back to the graphics card to see what they have, but we definitely want either an HDMI or a DVI. If it doesn't have anything else, we're not going to get it because the graphics card probably doesn't support it. And then let's go with an IPS panel, just because frame sync doesn't matter, none of that matters. And then we're going to go through price here. Now there's different specs that you can do with monitors, and some can bring it up cheaper, and like the different panel type you might want different for if you have like 144 hertz. But that's just what I'm doing for now. And after this, it's price and kind of the mount or the looks of it, if you care about that. And then the reviews. Monitors are a thing that I really look at the reviews for, because some, they might look good in specs and everything else, but they really just suck in reviews. Now, this monitor just happens to be that the one I'm recording on, so I know it's a pretty good one. They have pretty good reviews on other websites. I wouldn't go over the reviews on PC Part Picker. I'd go over to Amazon here and see that this one has 2,600 reviews, and then it has 4.5 stars there. And I'd say that's pretty good. I mean, I could go down into the reviews and look specifically, but because I actually own this monitor, I didn't plan this at all. I had no clue it was going to pop up here when I chose this, but because I have it and I know it has good reviews and that I bought it and everything, we're just going to go with that one. So there we go. That's our build here. And if we go to the bottom here, a total of $1,200, which is around what we were aiming for. Now, if I was really specific, I might knock the power supply down to like a bronze and maybe a few less watts to save a few bucks there. The case, I could get a different case, a cheaper case that still looked nice, knock some off there, maybe a different card, maybe not do an M.2, maybe do different RAM. Motherboard, you're gonna pay around that. Same with water cooled. CPU, you can't really compromise because it's your main processing power, so you can't really compromise on that. And then with the graphics card, if you're doing gaming, I wouldn't go below a 1060, so you can't really compromise too much there either. That's just kind of the build that I came up with. And you don't have to buy it right away. There's plenty of deals that go around. I've bought stuff on Black Friday that gets really good deals, and just wait for things to go on sale and such. Or you can even go back through individually and see if something is almost just as good or a little bit better for the same price when a sale comes up. So you don't even have to stick to this. You just have to watch that it's compatible. And you'll see up here it says compatibility, check this one. If it's red, that means there's some big issue. And if it's like this one just says right here, it might need a different mounting thing, which I don't think it will, because CPU coolers pretty much are good all around with all kinds of stuff. So that's not a big deal, but if it says this will not work, those are the kind of compatibility things you need to check. Where you buy them, I always buy from Amazon and Newegg. So this one on Outlet PC, you could, I wouldn't. One other place that I would buy from, even though I haven't bought from yet, is B&H. I know they're a really good company, and I just happen to have not bought anything from them. It's just been better sales on Amazon and Newegg, and that's gonna do it. So hopefully that helped you figure out how you can spec a computer, and then also make sure to save, and you can come back to it later. And I just tend to work on builds sometimes and change things later. In some parts, they go out of stock and you have to replace it with something else. That's gonna do it for this one and this computer tutorial series, at least as of right now. So now if you wanted to build a better computer to do YouTube or video editing or gaming or anything, now you know how to do it all. And if you're like me and you are a gamer and wanted to build a computer but didn't know where to start, this series hopefully helped you a lot. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.